Hello, Sunshine. I'm ALEXI LALAS, and welcome to the State of the Union podcast, where we look at the beautiful game on and off the field through the lens of red, white, and blue colored glasses. This week, we'll be talking She Believes. We'll talk Pato, FC Dallas, Champions League. I know this much is true. Klopp, Clubhouse, MLS ownership, the little things, invisibility versus flight, Austin, and so much more. But first, joining me as always, my friend, my colleague, my guiding light, David Mossy, a soccer savant and a Fox Soccer researcher and writer extraordinaire. Mossy, how are you on this Monday, February 15th in the year 2021?
Magnifique. Formidable.
Formidable. What have you been up to, my friend? Hold on, before we get to that, do you know what these are? And now, if you're just listening to this and it's just audio, I'm going to describe what I am holding up here. It is a green box. I hope that people that are watching can see this. Do you know what this is, Mossy?
Cookies of some sort.
Of some sort. Mossy, it is the most wonderful time of the year. It is that time of the year when Girl Scout cookies are in abundance. Have you ever had Girl Scout cookies, Mossy?
No, I bought some recently from Ian Joy's daughter, but not for myself. I had them shipped to some charity.
What is your problem? This would be right up your alley. These are so good. And when I say these, I mean these that I'm holding up. I am holding up the Thin Mints. There are no other Girl Scout cookies as far as I'm concerned. The Lalas household, we had a big brouhaha last night about what are appropriate Girl Scout cookies and what the best ones are. I think it's 50-50 right now, but the Thin Mints for me are so head and shoulders above everything else out there when it comes to Girl Scout cookies. I'd be interested to hear what, but since you've never had them, you can't even have this conversation, but you're missing out, Mossy. You are missing out. Yes, I appreciate that you, gave to a good cause here and sent out the cookies to others, but you need to keep some for yourself. And if you do, the green box, okay? The green box that contains the Thin Mints. That's the way to go. They're not, all Girl Scout cookies are not created equally, okay? I'm not saying they're bad, other ones, although I could make an argument. But as far as being good, nay, great, it's Thin Mints when it comes to it. Mossy, have you been watching anything this week?
Well, I sort of teased it in the way I answered your question about how I'm doing. Still on this Francophile TV phase of mine. And the latest show I'm watching is the best one of all, which is this show called The Bureau on Amazon Prime. It's kind of the French homeland, like espionage type stuff. And there have been 5 seasons of it, 10 episodes per season. I'm in the middle of season 3. I'm right smack at the midway point. And let me tell you this, if the remaining 2.5 seasons are as good as the 2.5 seasons I've watched so far, this goes right up there on my list of like top 5 or 6 best TV shows I've ever seen in my life.
Wow. Wait, what's it called?
The Bureau.
The Bureau. Is it done? I mean, is it started and finished, or are there more seasons to come? You know how this gets me riled up here.
I'm actually not sure. It's a great question. When I started watching it, I assumed it was done, but now I've seen some chatter on Twitter about a potential season 6, so it might not.
Yeah, that could be the killer for me. All right, well, I'll think about it. I watched a couple of things, not necessarily new. Well, one of them's new, but one of them's been around for a while over on the HBO platform. For those of you that have that, one of them is I Know This Much Is True, based off of a book. It's probably a 4-part type of series starring Mark Ruffalo, I think his name is. Actually, Mark Ruffalo playing 2 different parts in that it's about a set of twins, and it is it's not happy, it's not joyous, it's actually very morose and sad, but still well done. A little bit long, probably too many episodes, but some great acting and a really interesting and deep and emotional type of story if you're into that. The other thing that I watched, Mossy, I don't know if you've seen this thing, is called The Little Things, starring Denzel Washington. In normal times, I suppose it would have gone out as a regular movie into the movie theaters. It is, and who's the guy that starred in Bohemian Rhapsody? Remy, whatever his name is. You know who I'm talking about. Anyway, the lead, he's also in it. It's not great. Okay, it is almost. Remember the movie Seven with Brad Pitt? It's Seven Light, if you will, about a cop and a type of serial killer and the mentality and all that kind of stuff. So if you're into that, check it out. Is it worth it? Yes. If I had gone and seen it in the theater, I would have said it's not worth it. But those are a couple of things to check out. Anything else interesting happen in your life, Mossy, that we should mention?
No, not really. I mean, I had a important work meeting this morning, which meant that I missed out on what would have been a great thrill for me, because I know you got to speak to one of my favorite human beings.
Wonderful segue, my friend. All right. So Allie Wagner was kind enough to join us this morning to discuss a lot of different things. And you'll hear we talk about the upcoming She Believes tournament with U.S. Women's National Team and a lot of U.S. Women's National Team stuff, but a whole lot of other stuff here. So, let's light this candle and let's get to this and go right into the interview with Allie Wagner. So, without further ado, here we go. Allie Wagner, as I live and breathe, welcome to the State of the Union pod. Okay, Allie Wagner. I could read your whole bio and do all that kind of stuff. Just suffice to say, you are listening or you are looking at a legend when it comes to the American game. We know her. We love her. Well, we know her. She's a Fox broadcaster, played for the national team, done all sorts of stuff. And she's fun. She's fun to talk to about the game, whether it's the women's game, the men's game, men's, women's, co-ed, naked, doesn't matter. I love talking to Allie Wagner. Welcome, Allie. How are you doing? Where are you right now? Are you up north in California?
I am, actually, and I'm in my house, and I locked my children in a room. Don't call social services on me, but I've locked them in a room, so hopefully you don't hear them.
Oh, they're going to be fine. Don't worry about it. All right, so we brought you on, just the timing-wise was perfect with She Believes, but the reality is I could bring you on anytime to talk about soccer, as I mentioned.
Yeah, but you don't, so what's the deal?
Yeah, I know, but I do want to get into you to some stuff here, because you are known for a lot of things, but one thing you are known for is being a huge supporter of, what are they called? The Spurs team over there, right? The Tottenham Hotspur, all right? I don't know if it's plural or single.
Timing is immaculate.
All right, so folks, there is nothing that I enjoy more than seeing the great Allie Wagner break down into a puddle of teenage love and joy when it comes to talking about Mauricio Pochettino. Okay. She has this strange love and fascination for the man and respect for the man. So you can imagine when the love of her life, apart from her family and her husband, but her love of her soccer life, Mauricio Pochettino, was fired, was sent out, was discarded, and they brought in Jose Mourinho to lead her other love, which is Spurs. Quick. On your Spurs. They suck. What the hell's going on with them? And what do you do now? What happens now? The Mourinho thing has gone off the tracks now. At one point you were almost in first place and now you're ninth or something like that? What's going on?
First of all, really, Lex? Really? Like, kick me when I'm down? I don't know if I'll ever come back, but I will say Tottenham is in a very precarious position, and it was a bad decision to fire Pochettino. They should have given him his demands that he wanted on the trade market, on the player market, and they didn't. Instead, they went with, I don't know, this makes a lot of sense to me, the more expensive route of firing him and hiring Jose Mourinho to get an unattractive style of play, except for the brief moments that we break and we look so fluid and just punch-worthy, like we can just take anyone out when you got Son and Kane. And then you realize that's not going to be a long-term solution for the squad. And yes, we are in dire straits. It's pathetic. We have better players. I think we have better players than that and more capabilities than we are giving them responsibility for. So yeah, we're struggling, and thank you for bringing that up.
It's awesome. I love it. I love it so much. I'm here for the drama and the craziness.
But the good news is PSG is in the round of 16 tomorrow. So listen, I still get to watch Poach's team, and I get to see the transformation that's going to be there, and then I still get to cheer on my Spurs.
All right. Well, look, your Spurs are in a world of hurt right now. You know who's not in a world of hurt right now is the U.S. Women's National Team. As we get ready for She Believes, which kicks off this week, and you're going to see Allie in all her glory for everything that she does from a broadcast perspective for all the different games. And we wanted to bring you on to talk a little bit about not just the She Believes Cup that is upon us, but also, broaden it out to this women's national team, especially this year, an important year with the Olympics going forward. But let's start off with How do you think the last year with regards to the women's national team, or the lack of the women's national team in terms of games and experience, has impacted or affected this year and what Vlatko Andonovski and company are trying to accomplish going forward?
I think actually it benefited them. I think of all the teams, I think the U.S. benefited from this year off. They got rest, they got recovery. Vlatko got more time to actually discuss his vision with the team. They had plenty of meetings on Zoom, and there was a lot of information that was able to get out to the players, without them being on the pitch. And I think if you look at every other country, they were not going to be making those same gains the way that the U.S. did. So I think it was a massive benefit to this squad as they head into the Olympics. The only, I would say, counter to that point is that now you just have players that are a little bit older. And the age is an issue, I think, on this squad when you look at the rhythm that is going to be required of them come Olympic time. But they're so deep, I think they can navigate that anyways.
All right, so you mentioned the Olympics. It's a smaller squad in that there's 18 players. And so right now when we are watching this team, they're fighting for positions. They're fighting for one of those 18 spots. And oftentimes we've kind of looked at the U.S. women's national team cycle ending with the Olympics. And in a strange way, you could almost look at it starting, although there are plenty of veterans and, shall we say, older players that are still involved in it right now. So when with regards to She Believes right now, what are you looking for from this U.S. national team? And point us to some things, either some traditional folks that need to show that they deserve to be on that 18, or some young bucks that are coming along that can kind of do some things to kick them out.
Yeah, I think this tournament's actually massive. I do, because Colombia, the quality opposition not there that we saw in January. She Believes they're going to be tested. Canada's not going to test them the way that maybe we had hoped, because they couldn't call in all their key players in a Buchanan and Ashley Lawrence, a young player like Haitama, but Sinclair won't be there. But I think Brazil, it can push this squad. They're a team that will have not. They will have suffered from the layoff or the time off last year, but I think Brazil, with the way that they play, they are one of those squads that can push the U.S. team, because they can have an expansive shape, because they can deal with players 1v1 defensively in their expansive shape, right? So you have a lot of teams that have to stay tight and connected in order to defend the U.S., and so it's harder for them to break out of that. While Brazil is a team that can handle you 1v1. They're fine being isolated in those situations. And I think that provides more of a challenge for the US when they're matched physically, and they can't just overrun the opposition, if you will. So I think, this is going to be a good test for some players in terms of the quality of opposition. And a player like Carly Lloyd, someone that we talked about, came in as fit as could be in that January. She's someone that has to step up and have a really good performances, because against a Colombia, it's not the same thing against a Brazil. I think a Megan Rapinoe still falls in that category. We're not going to see Tobin Heath, but I think she would fall in that category. Allie Krieger's not in camp. We're not going to see what she can do. So the older players, you've got to show that you can still compete at this level. Otherwise you're writing your ticket home. If you're a younger player, I think there's more wiggle room. And I think that it's going to be getting your feet wet. If it's a Kat McCarry or Sophia Smith, I think these players can come in, and if you can see glimpses of brilliance, if you can see moments that they're comfortable when they should be uncomfortable, that's going to tell Vlatko a lot. And that is what you said, Lex. It's about building towards the next World Cup and seeing whether or not they're a player they want to invest in and bring along in that 18, because maybe they won't get a lot of minutes, but they're going to get the experience.
All right. Well, to your point then, who do you think is going to be there or not be there? I mean, if I said to you, Carly Lloyd, Megan Rapinoe, Alex Morgan, Tobin Heath, Becky Sauerbrunn, which ones of those, or maybe some others that I didn't mention, that we look at as the veterans and those names and faces for the national team aren't going to be there this summer?
Yeah, I can speculate. I think it's very difficult to say right now, because we haven't seen enough. I don't know what kind of form Alex Morgan is coming in after having a baby. I think she has the biggest uphill battle. I do. I think the way Vlatko plays, I think that he loves a Lynn Williams, and Lynn Williams is a runner, someone that can stretch the opposition. Alex Morgan was that. She's been better back to goal as of late. But I still think it's a bigger uphill battle for her, more than a Carly Lloyd, more than a Megan Rapinoe. There's always going to be room on a roster for a Megan Rapinoe, just with set piece delivery. If let's say she's not a starter, late in a game, she would be a player you'd easily put on knowing that she can deliver that ball, that potentially, whether it's Lloyd or it's a Kat Macario playing a false nine, that can get on the end up. So Alex Morgan is the one that probably has the biggest challenge ahead of her. Becky Sauerbrun's in. Becky Sauerbrun's the captain. She's already proving that she's been the top defender under Vlatko. He's very high on her. So I think it's Alex Morgan that might not be there. Tobin Heath could be a player that doesn't end up being there at the end. We haven't seen her come into camp. She turned down coming into camp. She wanted to stay with Man United, because it wasn't a FIFA window where she had to be released. So I do think that those are a few names that might have more of a struggle, because you've got to consider Kat Macario is going to be on this roster. Unless barring injury, she's going to be on this roster. And you're going from 23 down to 18. And now you're actually adding in fresh blood as well.
So when you talk about Vlatko, what do you think he is ultimately looking at? And he's always going to say, well, I'm balancing it. But if he's looking at this summer, does he need to do well? And when I say do well, I mean, for the US, it is winning gold. And if he does, is he hurting himself in the long term by concentrating on that moment in terms of the players that he takes? Or do you think he's taking a much more long-term approach, saying, I don't want to do something this summer that's going to jeopardize my ability to win a World Cup a couple of years from now?
Yeah, great question. I think they have to win this summer. I think they have to win. I look at the talent on that team and the talent on the other squads, and the ability for Vlatko to actually improve these players that are seasoned vets. I think they have to win. I think anything less than a win, it would be a massive failure for this group that's going to be in there. I don't think that he has I don't think his decisions will impact the long term either. So I think he can win, and I think he can take that group on to the next World Cup 2023 and compete and be in a very good position to win there as well. I don't think the two are mutually exclusive. And I think he can get that balance right by a few older players in the squad, but also bringing the others along the way in the training environment and getting their feet wet, maybe in the Olympics. But it's building towards something in 2023. And you've still got tons of time to get these younger players into the fold of what is US soccer life.
All right, let's open it up a little bit more in terms of where women's soccer is and where it's going and the progress and some of the challenges out there right now. I mean, we're in 2021. Obviously, we focus a lot on the U.S. women's national team, but that's just still a small group and a very small proportion of what the bigger game is. And we've seen and we've worked and we've seen time and time again how many other countries and cultures are starting to put more resources into the women's game. I guess the question, you've probably been asked this a lot, is this quote unquote exodus that we have seen of players going over to Europe to see what it's like over there. Are you concerned with that? Is that problematic, or is this actually a good thing that the rest of the world is trying to catch up to the US?
I love it. I love it. This is everything that I wanted for women's football, is it to be taken seriously abroad, to be invested in abroad, and for players to have choices. You know me, I'm a free market girl. So I love the idea that if you are going to pay your players better, if you're going to give them a better resources, better environment, that of course they're going to be attracted and come over and want to have that experience. And it's good for women's football. It's pushing the game forward, and it's making us and the NWSL better ultimately. I mean, the investors that are getting into the NWSL, the understanding that what is going to take to compete with that, the European market is helping our game move along, and it's making the environment here for our players better. So I love it. I think ultimately you were never going to stop this, and it's up to us to make sure that we react quickly. We should have been ahead of it. We weren't necessarily, and to react quickly to make sure that our players coming out of college, whether or not they go to college, they skip college, go straight into the pros, that they're developing, that there is a pathway for them to develop the way there's going to be pathways for players abroad to develop. And we've got to get on it. I mean, and that's on us and at the club level.
All right. Before I let you go, I know you are an avid follower of all the leagues out there, including Champions League. We're in a Champions League week. By the time people are listening and watching this Champions League, we'll have the round of 16 will start. What are you looking for? What is something that you're excited about with regards to Champions League coming up here? So the two games that I'm like focusing on, PSG, Barca, Leipzig, Liverpool.
I think you look at that and go, Barca's struggling, even though they had a nice run of form. They've been coming back from behind in most of their games. They just lost. They got kicked out of another cup. And you look at PSG, they haven't been able to come close to implementing what Poch wants under them. So they're almost in this, we're trying to press, but we don't really know how to press. We're not fit enough to press, and they're getting stretched. And now they're without Neymar, they're without Di Maria, they're without big names. And so I look at that game and go, who's gonna fight through that moment, right? They're neither one, I think, is on top of it. And who's gonna fight through it? Ultimately, I'm gonna give the nod to PSG in that game just because I love Poch. On the other side, I'm gonna go with Liverpool, Leipzig. We know Liverpool's struggling. I mean, if Alisson has another shocker, their center back situation is dire. Now it's impacting their midfield, as we know, with Henderson and then pulled back Fabinho. I look at that and I go, that's Leipzig's game for the taking. And I think that Nagelsmann and those guys are going to run it and tear open Liverpool. I really do. I think they're going to press them out. But there's going to be goals in both of those games. A lot of goals. Bad defending by, I think, all 4 teams. So
nice.
I like this is our dream, Lex.
Here's the bad defending. One more. I got to ask you one more before we go, because I love talking with you. I love arguing with you. You're always very interesting in the way that you see soccer and the way that you see, quote unquote, the beautiful game. And at times we see it differently. I think
at times,
I think you're a romantic. I think you're a romantic when it comes to it. No, okay. So when you look at the beautiful game, if somebody came up to you and wanted you to define it, give me some of your, I guess, principles and tenets that you have out there in terms of how you think the game should be played, whether it's Pochettino's teams or anybody else. Ultimately, how Aly Wagner thinks the beautiful game should be.
11 10s on the field, just 11 10s, no goalkeepers, 11 number 10s on the field, and that would be beautiful.
That's beautiful. What if you lose 5-0 by doing something like that?
Wait, now you're Italian, but we're going to defense. Here we go. No, my vision for a game, it lies between a Nagelsmann, where these players are so in tune with the tactical rotations that can occur that all I think about is manipulating the opposition. So when you think about Nagelsmann, you think about Poch, and you think about rotate. They're doing it at PSG even more so than they did it at Tottenham. The rotations that occur that confuse the opposition. That makes my heart sing. I am not for like solo runs as much as I love it, and I love someone that can take 3 players on. I am for a team, a group of 3 players, a group of 4 players, just toying with the opposition, pulling them out of the exact space they know they eventually want to get into, and scoring, and doing it as quick as way possible. I'm not into the Barca. Let's be very slow. Let's get really close to each other, and let's try to squeeze through. I'm much more into big, expansive football that allows players in small groups to manipulate the opposition and do it very quickly and move up the pitch very quickly and get a tap in goal in the end, because it was that obvious and it was that easy. And can you follow me on that?
Kind of.
And win some tackles, win some headers in the meantime, and some set pieces just for you.
You are a romantic, and that's one thing that I love about you. I love the way that you think about the game. I love the way that you do your job. I've had the pleasure and the privilege and the honor of working alongside of you for a number of years now. I can't wait to do it in person again going forward. But until then, we muddle through what is 2021 here. And part of that is She Believes, coming up here on the 18th, the 21st, and the 24th, as we mentioned, Brazil, Argentina, the United States, and Canada. Plenty to look forward to on the field when it comes to this U.S. women's national team, and plenty to look forward to off the field with the likes of Aly Wagner and her dulcet sounds coming from a microphone very, very soon. Anything you want to add about where the people can find you out there, Aly?
No, I just want to add, I'm glad you shaved-ish. Thanks for putting on a hat.
Yep.
Yeah, come, Aly Wagner, at Aly Wagner. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Insta.
Yes,
come find me. I don't post that much, but when I do, trust me, it's worth it.
It is. It's quality over quantity.
It's quality.
All right, listen.
I'm like the opposite of you, Lex.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, go let those kids out of the closet, please. Okay, let them run free. All right. Thank you, Aly Wagner. We will talk to you again soon.
Love you, Lex.
All right. See ya. All right, so that was the great Aly Wagner. So much to chew on there, Mossy. I know you, like me, think that she's wonderful at what she does and just a really, really fun person and a really, really interesting soccer mind out there. And as I mentioned in the interview, to talk to about any type of soccer, any type of kicking the ball out there. Obviously, we focus a lot of the women's national team and with the upcoming She Believes. But if you ever get a chance to sit down with Aly and pick her brain and talk about stuff, do it, as I know you have oftentimes, Mossy.
Oh, absolutely. Love Aly. Looking forward to working with her on this She Believes Cup coming up.
It's going to be fun. All right, let's continue on here with our opening segment. Mossy, I know how much you love Brazilians. Okay, there was I'll call it a big signing. Shall we call it a big signing? You know who I'm referring to. The Duck Man, right? Alexandre Pato, right? We can just call him Pato, right? Your countryman, Brazilian, burst on the scene many years ago as a young phenom, certainly didn't live up necessarily to the high hopes, and partly is because of a consistent and lengthy type of injury spell right now. But we come to find out that Orlando City down there has decided to sign yet another Brazilian, coming on the heels of others, including Kaká. What do you make about this?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Listen, I was all about Pato when he was first coming up with Internacional, and then those first 2-3 years with AC Milan. I absolutely loved him as a player. His career flaming out is one of my biggest disappointments as a fan. And you're right, injuries were a major part of that. But also, I came to realize over the years that Pato doesn't really love the game all that much. And I came to feel like I was more invested in his career than he even was. And I've especially felt that way lately because last year he was playing for a good Brazilian team in Sao Paulo who had a manager who loved him in Fernando Diniz. And he asked to rescind his contract. And then he spent 6 months without playing, was getting some interesting offers and swatting them away, and was giving off a vibe like he didn't even want to play anymore. And so now he resurfaces with Orlando, and I'm not sure what to think. The most generous interpretation here is he was being picky about his future, and he feels like Orlando is the perfect spot. Oscar Pareja, and looking at the roster that they've assembled and getting to play alongside guys like Nani and Chris Mueller and Mauricio Pereira, and that he actually thinks this is going to be a good place for him to get his career back going again. So I hope that's what it is, and that Orlando is the right environment and it lights a fire under him, and we get to see Pato playing at his best because he is talented and I think can still be an above average striker, certainly in MLS. But I don't know, to be honest. It could also be that he plays 10 games for Orlando and then decides, you know what, this was a mistake and let's rescind my contract. And so I kind of don't know where his head's at. So it's hard to analyze this move.
There's a bit of a flyer, and this is a reclamation type of project, but there's also, some pragmatism associated with the fact that you have players that are out on loan like Dwight Dike. So they need people to fill in. And you take a pass. He's not a designated player, not spending ridiculous amounts of money. Yes, he is a name, so there is the attention that comes with that. It doesn't resonate in the way that other big signings do, but I'm not sure that they were expecting that to happen going forward. It's interesting, though. I want to pick up on something you said there. You said that you don't think he necessarily, Pato, likes or loves the game even as much as you do, maybe. Do you need to, in order to be successful, like and or love the game?
I think to be successful at the absolute highest level and to make the absolute most of your abilities, I think you do. Now, he's talented enough that he's been able to get by and have some success just on natural ability. And so we'll see if that's the case here. But I don't know. I think that in Orlando, he's going to have to really bring it, and his head's going to have to be right. Because, I mean, if he's still harboring any notions that MLS is going to be a piece of cake for him and he can just go and skate by on his natural ability, I think he's going to be sorely mistaken. So I hope he has his head screwed on straight going into this.
I think I called Dara Dike Dwight Dike for some reason, probably because of his brother Bright Dike. But anyway, Daryl Dike is, I think, part of the future of the attack up there. And with him being out on loan, there's a possibility of that. I've played with players that I think personify what you are trying to describe here. And it can be frustrating even internally within a locker room and within a team, to see others that on the surface don't necessarily take it as seriously as you do, and therefore, I guess, don't have the same affinity and love and connection to the game. But I've also seen where there are players where it doesn't matter, and I think you have to be able to get over that if you're a teammate, as long as the player is doing that job. Everybody's wired differently, and everybody comes at their profession, in this case sports, differently. And I think sometimes that what is perceived as an apathy is just a coping mechanism, and trying to make somebody something they're not. I think that can be problematic. If for example, Pato was more in line in this figure that you are laying out in a more traditional sense and was all in, it doesn't necessarily mean he would have been that much better. And I think you also have to be really careful of thinking that some of that behavior equates to them not caring, or being less competitive, or not being impacted or affected in the same way. I know it's a fine line, but it's an interesting subject because there are very, very different personalities that make up all locker rooms, and there are traditional ones and kind of classic ones that we associate with the way you should be, or classic type of success, and it doesn't always play out that way. In this case, though, Mossy, you're absolutely right. If this works, great. If it doesn't, he'll move on. But I don't think this is a throwback type of signing. I think that this is, if it works, great. If it doesn't, as I said, you move on. Speaking of other stuff that's happening, and this is much more long-term and big picture, but I did want to touch on it because I was asked about this actually a couple times over the last couple of weeks with what FC Dallas is doing, Mossy. Every team in the world, and certainly every team in Major League Soccer, approaches their business differently. There's no one set way about how to go about your business. And even within MLS, you have very, very different types of approaches. FC Dallas has rested and promoted and marketed themselves as this team of development. And they have championed the relationships that they have with other teams around the world, and the fruits of those relationships in terms of selling players on and placing players and being viewed to as the go-to place when it comes to youth development and a professional environment for that youth development. When we talk about these models, Mossy, as I said, there's no right answer, but do you think what FC Dallas is doing right now is ultimately going to be the wave of the future for other teams, or is the right thing for FC Dallas to be doing right now?
Well, Jason Davis wrote a terrific article about this, an article that was mostly positive, but then he threw in a couple of interesting paragraphs at the end where he said, Dallas operate in such a way where it doesn't seem like winning is the utmost priority, and they're very comfortable being this great developer of young talent and happy to sort of ship them off overseas. Weston McKennie and Chris Richards being examples of that. And now we see this latest one, Justin, is it pronounced Justin Che?
Okay. Your guess is as good as mine.
FC Dallas player who's going on loan to Bayern Munich. And so, yeah, that would be the only question if I was an FC Dallas fan. Yes, MLS is moving into this phase of embracing being a selling league and a great developer of young talent, and that's great. But we've talked recently in this podcast about Dortmund and how we've sort of reached a tipping point with them where people don't seem as willing to praise them anymore for that, and there's sort of a sense of, okay, but are you actually going to win anything? And so that would be the one question with FC Dallas, how they sort of manage the way they operate, but also wanting to, be successful on the field and win trophies.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's that FC Dallas don't want to win. Obviously, you'd love to have both of them, but the pendulum has swung dramatically, and not just in recent times. They've always been this team that has focused a lot of their resources and energy on development. That's all fine and well, but I try to put myself in the position of the ticket sales department. And I think back to my time, in front offices, and the challenges that these men and women each and every day have, just in normal circumstances, when you get people on the line. Because, I know we talk about this before, and I've said this before, I don't find it necessarily interesting and or entertaining to watch developing talent. It doesn't get my juices flowing to know that I am seeing the future talents of the US that may star later on in Europe, okay? I'm buying tickets. I'm spending my hard-earned money to watch something right now, because that to me says immediately that this is minor league, okay? That this is about development as opposed to being about winning each and every year and doing everything that you possibly can to bring me that championship, okay? I mean, resting on your laurels of selling players on and having them developed, that pride comes and goes. And I know there's others that completely disagree. They love sitting in the stands and looking and saying, that player is going to be this one day. And then when that player is that one day, they take immense pride and they get kind of giddy about the fact that they were able to see that player development. I'm much more interested in the final product. I'm much more interested in the formed player, even if it's a young player, and that player being a star and helping my team win and win championships. And I get about selling and being part of the marketplace. I get all that, but I don't know how those men and women at Dallas get up each and every day and make those calls. And I guess, for lack of a better word, have to justify this approach from a business perspective to the existing and the potential soccer fans out there, that they want to come to the stadium and they want to support FC Dallas. And look, this is a balance, and that pendulum may swing different ways as it goes forward. But I think it's really interesting, and I think that there are other MLS teams that look at Dallas and say, that's fine for Dallas, but that's not something that, one, we want to try here, or two, we could even get away with even if we wanted to try. And so it'll be interesting going forward if they continue to do that, how far this gets, because is it in a strange way limiting in terms of the brand? And to your point, and I'm going to throw it back to you, when we talk about Ajax being this development type of club, it's in the context of them still being the elite super club in their league. That's not the case here when we're talking about FC Dallas. Mossy, I'm sorry, I took up a little time there.
No, I was going to transition to something else. I was going to say, if you're going to forge a partnership with a European club, you could do a lot worse than Bayern Munich, who we can now refer to as the world champions, because they did capture the Club World Cup crown, defeating Tigres 1-0 in the final.
Hold on, Mossy, before you go there, because I know we're finishing off with FC Dallas, and it relates to that. I just want to make sure, because I don't have to go back. The relationship between FC Dallas and Bayern Munich is one of these things that in the past has been on paper, and there's a lot of fanfare, and you got people shaking hands in that picture, but it has meant nothing basically in the past. This is an actual relationship that has paid dividends and actually has some meat to it. And that's great. That's a feather in the cap of FC Dallas, because there's still a lot of relationships out there that have been established, trading of best practices and all that kind of crap that don't provide the benefit that is provided now. Two, to your point, one, if not the greatest team existing right now on the planet in Bayern Munich, who just continue to win and seem to be this juggernaut. And I don't know who or what is going to stop them going forward, and yet add another trophy to their case in terms of being the champions of the Club World Cup. Go ahead, Mossy. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and just to put a ribbon on the Club World Cup, which we televised the final in FS1, and during the trophy ceremony, John Strong and Stu Holden got into an interesting sort of big picture conversation about the gap that's opened up between Europe and everybody else. And yeah, I mean, it's there's no way around it. It's the 8th straight edition of this tournament won by the European club. And yes, not all the finals have been that one-sided. Tigres gave a decent account of themselves but still you don't get a sense that the gap is really closing. The European team is always vastly superior in these finals, and you do feel like there's a huge gulf in quality. The interesting thing that has happened with the Club World Cup is that this tournament was built on the false premise that there were two giants in the field, the European and South American champion. They each get a bye into the semis. It's all set up for them to meet in the final, and FIFA can hype it up as this clash of heavyweights. And the first 8 editions of this tournament, I don't count the 2001, so I'm talking 2005 through 2012, kind of served to perpetuate that lie, because Europe won it 5 times, but South America won it 3 times. And in 7 of those 8 years, the final was Europe versus South America. And I say it was a lie because if you actually watch the games, the South American teams were just squeaking by in the semis, and all their victories over European clubs were these 1-0 smash and grab victories in which they were dominated. The goalkeeper stood on his head. They nicked the goal against the run of play. And so you kind of felt like this isn't sustainable. And sure enough, in the last 8 editions, the European club has won every one. And the South American team has now lost in the semis in 4 of the last 8 editions. It's basically become a 50-50 proposition. And so we've seen this revolving door of different teams from other federations getting that crack at the European club in the final. It was Tigres this year. A couple years ago, it was Al Ain. A couple years before that, Kashima Antlers. A couple years before that, Raja Casablanca. And this whole thing was trending, in my opinion, towards an MLS team getting that shot, because I think an MLS team is knocking on the door of winning CCL. They've come very close the last few years, and eventually they're going to win it. And then if they get put on a different side of the draw from the European club, they're more than capable, an MLS team, of beating the South American representative and getting to a final. And you could have very easily seen this year LAFC playing Bayern Munich, and that would have been great. The only issue is Gianni Infantino is now cooking up this expanded edition of the Club World Cup, which is going to start sometime in the next couple of years with 24 clubs, and there's going to be 8 European teams with a group stage, and I'm not sure exactly what the format is going to be and what that means for the CONCACAF representatives. I know there's going to be 3 of them, but I just hope it's done in a way that allows a realistic path for a CONCACAF team to get to the final. Otherwise, it's just going to become this procession of European teams meeting in the final, which will sap any, to me, relevance to this competition. So that's just something to keep an eye on in the coming years.
So you are supportive of the Club World Cup. You just want to make sure that the format, either in terms of the size of brackets or when this possibly gets expanded, maintains some sort of structural integrity so that we're not just constantly having European teams play in the final.
Yeah, for as much as people bag on it, I think the way the format is now is what allows the greater chance for a surprise, because you have the European club in the middle of its season getting on a plane, flying to Qatar, having to play a do or die game right away. And as we know, in knockout soccer, one game, you never know. If it's structured now in such a way where there's a group stage and several European clubs are able to sort of get their feet wet and sort of get into the rhythm of the competition, then it just seems completely far-fetched to me that a non-European team would ever win it. So, I know I'm critical of Gianni Infantino a lot. I'm not a fan of the 48-team World Cup. That's a whole other conversation. But even here, I think he's making changes that are only going to accentuate the dominance of the European club. So I'm not sure it's for the betterment of this competition. So, but I could be wrong. We'll have to wait and see.
Well, we'll see ultimately what it looks like. I mean, if it's just another... If it's just another World Cup just featuring clubs that, in terms of size with group play and all that, then theoretically you have to expand the time in order to get all those games in. And then is it a single type of bracketed window when it happens, or is it something that happens over the length of a year, or who knows? I mean, yeah, I go back and forth as to whether I care whether the Club World Cup continues or not, because I'm not I mean, as much as I want to see MLS win CONCACAF Champions League and then go and get that prize and that carrot to the Club World Cup, yeah, I mean, and which is probably why Gianni Infantino is trying to find ways to juice it up and make it something bigger than it has been, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. All right, Mossy, anything else before we take a break here?
That's it.
All right, we're going to take a real quick break, and when we come back, we're going to head around the rest of the world. Don't go away. All right, we're back, and we're going to take a little whip around the rest of the world here in a lot of different places in a short period of time. We're going to start over in England, shall we, Mossy? All right, Jurgen Klopp, who I think last week or the last couple of weeks, we and many others have looked, and he's been out of sorts. Not just that his team is losing, but he is snapped when it comes to public speaking and just not really been his self. we come to find out that that first off, we are dealing with human beings and all of the things that happen with human beings. He lost his mother, and not only that, he was not, because of the COVID situation, able to attend her funeral. And so, he's been dealing with a lot of things, and, condolences to him and to his family. And maybe that, sheds a little bit of light about his personality, or the change in his personality over the last couple of weeks. Absolutely. But it doesn't change the fact that Liverpool right now is struggling, and they've had plenty of injuries. We all know about the injuries, and it's not the same type of situation that we have seen in the past right now. But, taking out the emotion and the human element of it right now, if you're just looking at Liverpool right now, where they, Klopp has conceded the title, basically, so that's not going to happen. They crumbled this past weekend against Leicester. What's going on with Liverpool, and they're not going to get it back this year, but is this more of a problem than just it's so difficult to stay at the top and at your peak for any length of time in the world, even if you're an elite team?
Well, I think the main issue is the injuries at the back and the domino effect that's had on the rest of the team, being forced to play some of your best midfielders at center back. But also there's just a sense that it's one of those anything that can go wrong type seasons when you have Alisson all of a sudden in this kind of form. Wow. Another horrible mistake, gifting Leicester a goal. And so Liverpool go down 3-1 to Leicester. Yeah, it's just a season of forget for them. They just got to make sure they finish in the top four, frankly, because even that is not looking like a given at this point. So, but yeah, I mean, Jurgen Klopp had already conceded the title after that loss to City. He reiterated that again after losing this game to Leicester. And yeah, it seems pretty obvious to me that the title race is over in England, because this Manchester City team, they have that look that they had in the 17-18 campaign when they finished with 100 points and blew everybody away. They are playing incredibly well. I mean, their game 3-0 win over Tottenham. I don't know if you want to transition to them.
Well, no, before we go, I just relative to Klopp. I mean, look, I don't think that this is, as you said, there's so many factors that go into this, and some beyond his control. But, he is in charge of a team with a tremendous amount of talent. There are a lot of teams out there, including, by the way, Leicester, that have had injuries that they experience. He's paid a lot of money to try to fix those situations. There's only so much that he can do. And I'm not even suggesting that this is, a sackable type of situation that we're talking about here. But is there any part of you that thinks that Klopp is either starting or has been thinking about the future, and that this type of situation may lead to, I'm not even talking about Liverpool wanting to make a change. Maybe Klopp comes and says, it's run its course.
Well, there was that story floating around the last couple of days that Klopp was so mentally drained by everything he's dealing with, as you mentioned, not just football related, but also personal life wise, that he was thinking about resigning, and he completely shot that down. He said, no, I'm as motivated as ever, lots of energy. I want to get this thing figured out. And yeah, I kind of think he's a competitive guy, and he wouldn't walk away like this. He wants to get Liverpool back on track, going well again. And then I think, sometime in the next couple of years, it's been suggested he might want to manage Germany. And so he'll find the right moment to walk away from Liverpool. I don't think it would be under these circumstances.
Okay.
No.
Okay. You mentioned, well, actually, we talked to Allie about, I know I'm laughing, about her Spurs team. And, I mean, it's that one is maybe grounds for dismissal when we talk about Jose Mourinho and what this team, I mean, a few months ago was, where they were on the doorstep of challenging for the title, or at least first place, and how far, I don't think they were mighty at that point, but how far this team has fallen. They lose again and you mentioned Manchester City and what Manchester City is, the juggernaut that they are, and how good that they are looking. And that, I mean, we mentioned Bayern Munich and how good they are. I mean, not that anybody's going to, but don't sleep on what Man City is doing right now. But when it comes to Spurs, Mossy, what do you think? Is it fixable?
I mean, I'm watching that game, and I can already imagine in my head what Jose Mourinho was going to say afterwards. I'm so accustomed to his disingenuous analysis of games. So the match begins, and Spurs are parking the bus, And City, the first 20 minutes, have all this dangerous possession around Tottenham's area. But okay, they didn't create any clear-cut chances. And then Tottenham, the one time they crossed midfield with the ball, it led to a free kick on the edge of the City area, and Harry Kane smacked it against the crossbar. So I knew Mourinho was going to try to argue, and he did after the game, that we got off to a great start. We came closest to scoring in the first 20 minutes, when in fact, that one chance was completely against the run of play. And City, to me, were already feeling dominant in the early minutes of that game. So lo and behold, City get their goal off a pretty dodgy penalty. And so then they tack on two more after that. I knew Mourinho was going to try to make this case that first goal changed the game. And if it hadn't been for that penalty decision, who knows? But that only works for me if after going down 1-0, Tottenham actually committed men forward, leaving spaces behind, and City's subsequent goals came off the counter. But that's so not what happened. The game continued in the exact same vein. It was the same game at 0-0, 1-0, 2-0, 3-0. Even at 3-0 down with 20 minutes left, it was still Tottenham playing on the counter and City on the front foot. And so there's no reason to think that the goals that City scored afterwards wouldn't have been scored anyway, because they didn't come in any way as a function of the scoreline at that point. It was just they were the dominant team the whole game. So it's just so disingenuous how he focuses on incidents instead of the performance, and one thing I like about Pep and Klopp, it's always about the performance for them. They understand that in an individual game, you're not always going to get all the bounces and you could be victimized by a refereeing decision. But as long as their main concern is for their teams to play well, because as long as they play well on a consistent basis over time, they're pretty confident that that's going to translate to success. While Mourinho, it's almost like he treats it like it's like frivolous to discuss whether his team played well or not. He just wants to hone in on these specific incidents in a game and act like every week that's what decides the outcome. And I just think that's missing the point.
I love how riled up you just got. That makes me so happy. Oh my goodness. You know who got off to a good start, Mossy? The hare in the tortoise and the hare fable. Okay. And we know how that one ultimately, how that one ultimately ended. You know what was the best part was, here's Man City, right? With the way that they play and the philosophy and the romance and the playing out of the back, and they're committed even under pressure to do what they do. And the third goal was like, boom, right down the center of the field, 70-yard ball from the goalkeeper over the top of everybody. The Gundogan who scores the most anti-Pep, I guess. Pep would argue with me if I said this, but it's the antithesis of what Pep has been about his entire coaching career, and yet it was beautiful in and of itself.
And by the way, if Ilkay Gundogan could take a penalty, he would have had back-to-back hat tricks in the Premier League, because in the game against Liverpool at Anfield, he scored 2 and missed the penalty. And then because he missed that penalty, he was yanked from penalty kick duties this past weekend. And lo and behold, they earn a penalty, and Rodri ends up taking it instead. And then Gundogan scores 2 more. So imagine if this guy could convert on his penalty attempts. I mean, he's already getting loads of praise, but it would be even more. He'd be having back-to-back hat tricks, which is historic in the Premier League.
All right. Let it be noted, though, that it is February 15th and the EPL is over as far as a title race. Okay. Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay. So it's over. It's done. Oh, no, they'll get him in the playoffs. Oh, no, that's not going to happen. Mossy, let's move on really quick to Italy. Shall we go over to Italy?
Yep.
All right. What is going on? Inter Milan, top of the table. Good for them. Roma goes into third. Juventus with a loss at Napoli at the new Diego Maradona Stadium, I guess it's now called. They dropped to fourth. Not good for Juventus, not good for Pirlo. We're going to talk more about their Champions League week coming up here, but thoughts on and AC Milan, by the way, loses to 13th place. Spezia? Is that what happened? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, Milan finally blinked. I mean, they've lost other games this season, but this was their first real bad loss.
That's a stinker.
Spezia. And Inter capitalized by beating Lazio. And so Inter have leapfrogged AC Milan into first place. They're 1 point up. And those two teams meet this upcoming Sunday in the derby. So big match there. And it's amazing. We're talking about a Serie A title race that doesn't really feel like it involves Juventus right now. As you mentioned, they've dropped to fourth. They're 8 points back of Inter. They have played one fewer game than all the teams above them, but still, I mean, I don't know if that's ground they're going to be able to make up. I think they would prefer to be chasing AC Milan, because AC Milan, you did have this sense that they were kind of overachieving and would come back down to earth. Inter, this feels legit what they're doing. So I don't know if Juventus are going to be 8 points better than Inter through the rest of the season. So to me, this is trending towards Inter, Antonio Conte winning the Serie A title.
It's interesting because when you talk about someone like Weston McKennie or Serginho Dest, or even for that matter, Gio Reyna, these moments of greatness maybe are being facilitated, like created and enabled because of these down moments that these great teams are having. And if Barcelona was the Barcelona that we all thought, would Serginho Dest still be a part of it? I don't know. I mean, he's a great player, and I still think he would find a way, maybe, but maybe not. And Weston McKennie has come in and I mean, he's vital. I don't know why Pirlo doesn't play him every game, and he even left him out, but he proved how important he is to this team. But he's gotten an opportunity. If this was to your point, if this was a Juventus that we have come to know, would they still be getting these opportunities? Doesn't matter, because they're getting the opportunities, but that a lot of these opportunities are coming at moments when these teams aren't at the height of their power. You know, I think it is interesting, but you take what's given to you. So do you think Juventus, like you said, they're dropping to fourth now, and that they do have a game in hand? How do you think this ultimately plays out going down the line here?
I think Inter is going to win the Serie A title this season, which will be, assuming Juventus don't win the Champions League, which we'll get to in a minute, for Andrea Pirlo to come in his first season and be the one that sees the streak end of Juventus. They'd won 9 in a row. That's
and I don't think he came in under the guise of, well, this is a rebuilding type of thing, and we have to. I mean, I don't think anybody. There's times where that happens, but it's what have you done for me lately? Even for Pirlo, right? I mean, that's not good.
When you have 36-year-old Cristiano Ronaldo on your team, there's no way you can sell that as a rebuild. I know they've signed some younger players on the margins, but still, you're in win now mode when you have Ronaldo and you committed the sort of money to him.
Yeah, but Ronaldo's not the problem either, though.
No, I mean, but I'm saying, like,
does his stuff.
You can't sign Cristiano Ronaldo, and if you have a bad season, say, well, we're rebuilding. No, the very fact that you signed Ronaldo indicates that you're going for it.
Got it. All right. Shall we move over to Spain?
Absolutely.
All right, what do you got for me here, my friend? Now, are you ready yet to call this La Liga? I mean, I feel like I ask you this each and every week, and I think you're getting closer, but I'm not sure you're there yet.
Well, no, actually, last week Atletico finally dropped points in a match against Celta Vigo, and so Real Madrid and Barcelona were able to inch a little bit closer. Now, Atletico did get back in the win column this past weekend. Right now, the gap is 5 points with Real Madrid. But Atletico have played 2 fewer games. So it's a bit misleading. If they win those 2 games, it shoots back up to 11, and then it probably is over. And so it's hard to tell right now. We kind of have to wait until the number of matches is all lined up to see where we really are. But yeah, I mean, the Spanish media, they can't believe that Atletico are just going to run away with this thing. So Atletico dropping points last week was enough to prompt them to produce their famous headline they love, which is I Liga, which indicates that, the race is back on. Whenever in Spain a team is seemingly running away with it and then they start to drop back, you can always count on that headline, I Liga, which I don't know. Like I said, let's wait and see if this is really Atletico dropping back down, or they just had one bad day, which they're allowed to have, but they're still going to sort of power through here and win this fairly comfortably.
But of the Barcelona and Real Madrid, and look, Barcelona's been on a tear, but Real Madrid is there too, sitting in second. Of the two, you would still say the most likely, and I know, as you said, Atletico has those games in hand, Real Madrid would be the most likely to find a way at the end.
I'm not sure, to be honest. I mean, we're going to get to Champions League in a second. I actually buy into this Barcelona resurgence. I like the way they're playing. So I think it's
interesting. Okay.
Right. I don't know. I think I'd slightly lean towards Barcelona if anybody's going to make a run at them.
All right. Well, you set it up, so let's pay it off here. Let's head over to the Champions League. It's back, baby. You can hear the angels and the choir singing with the tune that they play, the hymn that they play. What are you looking forward to this weekend?
The glamour tie, which kicks off on Tuesday. Barcelona host PSG. And the big news there is Neymar is out with an injury. And this tie to me was already trending Barcelona's way even before that Neymar news. Like I just said, they've played better of late. They've won 7 in a row in La Liga. I know they lost to Sevilla in the Copa del Rey, so you could argue the one Champions League caliber opponent they faced during the stretch they lost to. So how much better are they? But just the eye test, watching them, I do think they're playing better. There's a better feel around that squad. Messi seems invested again. And meanwhile, PSG, I mean, I know you spoke to Aly about Pochettino. I'm a big Pochettino fan as well, but I don't think he's really gotten settled there yet and really put his stamp on things at all. It's been a really bizarre season for PSG. They frankly haven't played well at all. And so I don't think they were going to be going to this tie with all that much confidence anyway. And then to lose Neymar and Di Maria on top of it is a massive blow. So to me, Barcelona are now the favorites to go through in this one.
Really?
Yeah.
You still think? I mean, it's okay. All right.
And Neymar, we can get into that because so he gets injured last week in a cup match against a second division side, a game in which he was getting fouled pretty hard, and he was also having some fun and nutmegging the opposition. And so lo and behold, he gets injured. He's going to be out a month. He misses the first leg, might miss a second leg. And it's again ignited this debate about Neymar. There are people that feel like he brings it on himself, that his style is inherently showboaty, while others have come to his defense and said, no, he's the victim here. And referees need to do more to protect players like Neymar, including, by the way, Barcelona coach Ronald Koeman came down on that side of it and came out in defense of Neymar. So yeah, I mean, listen, this to me is the defining issue in his career, not any of the other nonsense that people focus on. Neymar was a very durable player early in his career. If you look at the amount of games he played per year with Santos and Barcelona and how many caps he racked up with Brazil by the age of 25. But ever since he moved to PSG, that injury against Marseille in February of 2018 is kind of a before and after in his career because since then, he's been very injury prone and injuries have wrecked his career. There's this stop-start nature to his seasons, which is maddening. He misses so many big games for club and country. And if he doesn't get this sorted, I mean, it's going to be the end of him. But I know in this whole Neymar debate, I mean, you have some sympathy for him, right? You come down more on the side that he's the victim here.
Yeah, I mean, look, I know at times he embellishes. I know at times he rolls, but and people say, you know, he puts himself in that position. Yeah, he puts himself in that position because he's so good, because he's so quick, because he has such great skill. And most importantly, because he has the first thought, and what a wonderful, valuable thought, and a very unique thought of going at players in a world and a time where very few players actually relish the opportunity to go one-on-one, and very few teams are set up to establish that. This is one of those players that does that. So, you know, you're going to go into situations where you're going to, you know, face, you know, physical challenges. And yes, I would want that excitement, that creativity, that beauty to be protected, not at all costs, but to be protected. And keep in mind, I think if you were Pele or Maradona, you would say, hey, not for nothing, but I would have loved to have had the world in which Messi and Neymar inhabit right now in terms of how they are protected right now. So do we have to protect even more? And at what point does it not become the game that we know and love going forward? But yeah, for the most part, I sympathize. I can't empathize because I certainly wasn't ever even close to that type of player, but I can sympathize and try to put myself in that position.
The other game Tuesday, Leipzig hosts Liverpool. Now I say they host Liverpool. This game is actually being played in Budapest for COVID reasons. So Leipzig lose their home match in this tie, which is not great. Interesting clash of German managers, Klopp against Nagelsmann. Also, this tie comes on the heels of the Upamecano news. He is Leipzig's star center back, coveted by all the big clubs in Europe, and he has apparently signed with Bayern. Nothing new. Bayern poaching one of their chief domestic rivals.
Yeah, rich get richer.
Yeah, I would take a shot at the Bundesliga there, but I don't want to upset Derek Ray, so I'll lay off. But so, yeah, I mean, Liverpool, we've talked about it. Listen, when you're struggling domestically, sometimes having a European match come up, it gives you a chance to reset, and it's a different competition altogether.
So you're looking at Liverpool as the wounded animal, and be careful if you're Leipzig, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I have a funny feeling Liverpool are actually going to play well here, but yeah, this is Leipzig, a very good team, got to the semis last season, so and got out of a group that had United and PSG. They made it out. United were eliminated, so I think this is probably pretty close to a 50-50, but I just have a funny feeling Liverpool might actually pull it out.
Really, you're probably right. But I see it more the opposite, or at least I did until you tried to convince me here. But I'm still not going to let you convince me. I still see Leipzig as licking their chops. If you're going to get a Liverpool, this is the Liverpool to get. This is the time to get Liverpool. And this is, for that club, a moment to relish. Now, that the game was moved can't be helped. But yes, there is an advantage, but the loss of advantage is much less than had it been normal times with huge fans and crowds and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I still think, I'm still going to go with Leipzig finding a way and licking their chops, smelling blood, and finishing off the leaving the carcass.
And then Wednesday, and we're just going to go through this week's games. Sevilla Dortmund. I am super high on Sevilla. In fact, if you told me, I'm not picking them to get to the final, but if you told me that some sleeper team was going to come out of nowhere and get to the final, my pick would be Sevilla. They won the Europa League last season. I love the way this team is playing under Lopetegui. They have a really underrated striker in Nesiri. I think I pronounced that right, a Moroccan player. And I really liked them before, and now they've added Papu Gomez to the mix. Now, Ocampos is out for this first leg. That's a loss. But nevertheless, I like Sevilla to go through in this tie. Dortmund, they made some big news on the coaching front. They have reached a deal for Marco Rosa, the Gladbach manager, to take over Dortmund next season. And by the way, the domino effect there is Jesse Marsch is being mentioned as one of the possibilities to take over at Gladbach, which would be a nice little move up for him. But so Dortmund, to me, already kind of have one eye on next season. And we know the talent there. There's going to be a really fun matchup. Sevilla have this center back, this young Frenchman, Koundé, who's absolutely phenomenal. And so him going up against Haaland is going to be terrific. But I actually lean Sevilla here in this tie.
You do. I mean, that's not going out on a limb. I mean, Dortmund is not the Dortmund that we thought they were going to be. So what do you think is going on with Dortmund?
Boy, weird season, because they do have a load of talent. I mean, at the beginning of the season, I actually tried to make a case that they could challenge Bayern, because the fact that they were able to hold on to Sancho.
Every year. We do that every season.
The fact that they were able to hold on to Sancho and Marco Reus being fit and Haaland for a full season, the emergence of Gio Reyna, I really thought the pieces were in place there for them to be really good this year. And I was just completely wrong. I mean, it's just been a disaster, frankly. But again, when you have that much talent, you're always dangerous. So I'm not like super, super confident in Sevilla, but Sevilla just seemed to be like a much more settled team. And so I like them over two legs.
But I mean, have they graduated, or are they still the Europa? I mean, isn't that what they are kind of built for and associated with when you talk about Sevilla? I mean, are they really positioned and ready for the bigs? Is what you're saying? You seem to think so. Though.
I do. Yeah, they added Rakitic, who's been a really nice signing there with his experience, and I think they're a dangerous team in this Champions League knockout stage. All right. But I could be wrong. And then we'll end it with Porto hosting Juventus. We've talked about Juve's problems. And the fact that they've been so unreliable this season, plus the fact that they've been knocked out by Lyon and Ajax the last two seasons in the Champions League, is the only thing that makes me not view this as like 100% banker. But still, this is not a very good Porto team. So this is one Juventus, despite all their problems, they should get through here. I think they are solid favorites in this tie. Cristiano
Ronaldo going home. I was reading something earlier today. He doesn't have a great record with regards to scoring against Portuguese competition, but yeah, I think they'll find a way to finish this off. Not ultimately in the two games. All right. Anything else, Mossy? We'll go over the games next week when we get to it next week. But that's what's on the plate for this week. So enjoy your Champions League viewing for the week. We're going to take another quick break here, and when we come back, it's time for Ask Alexi. Don't go anywhere. All right, we're back, and it's time for Ask Alexi. Use that hashtag out there, Ask Alexi, or don't. It doesn't matter. I mean, we'd like you to use it, or Ask Mossy. But even if you don't, we see some things that interest us when it comes to questions, comments, concerns out there. We pick them off of the social media platforms that we have going out there. And what do the people want to know, or what do they want to yell and scream about this week, Mossy?
First up, Barry Waslam. Do you think we'll have a conflict between MLS owners that want to spend versus those who don't?
This is an evergreen type of conflict. Over the years, especially as the league has started to expand, we have seen with new ownership comes new and sometimes very different type of thoughts on how the business should proceed. We know that MLS is a single entity and therefore the collective is important. And just because you want to do something doesn't mean that you are allowed to do it unless the group agrees and unless the group agrees that it is good for that collective. I'm telling you right now, I'm not telling you anything that you probably don't know. There are voices and opinions in that owners meeting that are from both sides of the spectrum. And there are those that want the opportunity to spend more and want to be given less restrictions to enable themselves to spend more. And they would argue that in doing so, they are going to help make the league better. There are those that, especially when it comes to ownership that's kind of been around, been there and done that, that recognize that the prudent type of approach that has been used over the years is something that they want to continue on. And while they may not say it, the pressure that comes from spending money, especially if you are one that isn't spending money, is not necessarily something that they want to have happen, either internally or from a public perspective out there. So yeah, this is going to continue. And this is the checks and balance that the structure of the league makes. And this, if you ask people, is one of the reasons why the league has been successful. On the outside, yeah, I want teams that want to spend to be able to do it as much as possible. I don't want it to happen to the detriment of any other teams or the league as a whole right now. But to be a fly on the wall in some of those ownership meetings when people are standing up and giving reasons, some very, very probably fair and smart type of reasons as to why teams should be allowed to spend more, or owners that want to spend more should be allowed. And on the other side, people standing up and saying, this is why we shouldn't do it. And I should say that over the years, the restrictions have been eased, and there has been a separation that has happened when it comes to what MLS is. Not to the extent that many of us want, but once again, it's not our money. We love to spend other people's money and tell other people how to spend their money going forward. But I do think that there will be a continued trend of starting to take more and more of the restrictions off. And if there are ownership groups out there that do feel that they want to do something that they can't do now, there's still a lot that they can do, and rules and regulations are designed to be flexible out there when it comes to MLS. But if there is something right now that precludes them from being able to do that type of stuff, there will be more and more opportunity going forward for them to find ways to spend more money. Does it help them or does it help the league? Remains to be seen going forward. I don't know, Mossy. What do you think?
No, I mean, I agree with you. This is an evergreen debate. I know that there are certainly some people that think MLS, we're ready to take the shackles off and let the really ambitious owners spend a lot of money. But then you do get into that concern of, this is a league that was built on parity. And so do you want to allow this real difference between how much certain clubs spend versus others? And then you could sort of drift to what Europe has of these incredibly top heavy leagues. And so that is the concern. So it's a balancing act for sure. Next up, Josh Jackson, thinking how crazy the Dallas-Houston-Austin rivalry could be.
Oh, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what Austin, as an expansion team, for those that don't know, coming in this year, is going to be. Not just to the Austin market, but to the Texas regional market, if you will. Because if you look right now, you have the Houston Dynamo, right? And Houston is, for the most part, irrelevant at this point, okay? That may change in the future, but right now, let's be honest, okay? And don't kill the messenger. That's just the reality of the situation right now. And when it comes to FC Dallas, what did we talk about earlier in the show? They have based their entire brand on the development and the sale of young talent. And that's what they are about. And so that region and that state of Texas is ripe for somebody big and bold and arrogant to come in and immediately own the state of Texas. Talk about, living up to being big. Texas is big. Somebody needs to come up and be big. and, swinging and coming in and doing things big and bold and, yes, arrogant in the best possible way on and off the field. And I hope that Austin can do that. Austin is a very different city for those that know it and have been there in the way that they go about their business. But I just think that the unique opportunity presented to Austin right now, I hope they don't let it get away. And in a strange way, I hope that it pushes those other two teams to recognize that to get all Texas on you, there's a new sheriff in town, and you better keep up. And I hope that Austin does that, and I hope that rather that we have one super club in Austin, in Texas, okay, as opposed to just three middling, close teams that lack relevance when it comes to both in Texas and even bigger in terms of the league right now. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited about what that's going to be for Austin. I don't want to see a soft launch. I don't want to see them Minnesota United it. I would much rather see them, and I know it's different and it's apples and oranges, but I would much rather see them come in with as many guns blazing as you can possibly have, a la Atlanta, and just own it from the beginning, unapologetic, and in doing so, turn a lot of heads and own not just your market, but own your state.
And we'll end with, I'll call it a fun one. It's a bit of a odd one, but you wanted it, so you got it.
Hey, good setup there, Mossy. Way to go. Boy, you're really...
Christoforos B. Oron would like to know, ALEXI LALAS, the ability to become invisible or the ability to fly? You can only pick one.
Ooh, okay. So, and I'm going to ask you, Mossy. So while I'm answering, I want you to think about this and think long and hard out there. There is only one answer to this, and that is the ability to become invisible. In being invisible, I think, is of so much more value than being able to fly. And everything that you can do as someone who can fly, you can certainly do being invisible. But not everything that you can do being invisible, you can do with flying. And we all know, what's the first thing that you think of when you think of being invisible? It's going places that you can't get to, or going places that in your visible form you wouldn't be allowed to go into, like the bank vault or something like that. Being able to fly isn't going to help you get into the bank vault, okay? Because no matter how high or far you can fly, you still ultimately have to walk into the bank vault. All right. So if I'm answering this one, I am saying without a doubt, no debate, although I'm going to ask you for your opinion, Mossy, it is being invisible. What do you think, Mossy?
Well, to be honest, I already feel pretty invisible sometimes. But when you say ability to fly, how quickly, like, does that mean at the snap of a finger I could just like...
Why are you overthinking this? I mean, fly, Mossy. You can fly. Yes, at the snap of the fingers, you can fly. Maybe you can fly really, really fast. So if you wanted to right now, you could finish this podcast recording and fly instantaneously from Los Angeles to New York and visit your parents if that's something that you wanted to do. You would have that ability, as opposed, I guess, to the invisible person who would, yes, still have to drive or get on a train or get on a plane, albeit in an invisible form, so you're not paying for it. Or you could get on a charter flight, but you'd still have to fly. You wouldn't have the ability to do that. You couldn't have the ability to fly. Is that give you enough detail in order to make this type of answer that you're about to give?
Yeah, then I think I would take flying. I'm not sure how the invisible part would really benefit my life and make it more enjoyable. It would just mean that I would know what people are saying about me. And as you mentioned, you could sneak into a bank vault, but then surely people would notice that all this money was missing and where it's being
but who
spent.
are they going to blame? You weren't there. Mossy, look, I mean, here's the problem, Mossy.
The criminal mind in here isn't really working.
Forget about
right
the criminal mind. Let's focus on the romantic that you are. You love the game of soccer, okay? You think at times about moments and situations where you could literally walk into the locker room of your beloved Brazil before they walk out on the field of a World Cup. And you could sit there and you could walk into the locker room and hear what Pep Guardiola is saying without anybody knowing. You could go places. Gianni Infantino's latest meeting with whoever to decide the future of the game. You could do all sorts of things. You could be privy to things and experience things that would expand your mind and at times blow your mind by being invisible as opposed to being able to fly.
Yeah, but who's to say I can even get to that Brazil game? If I can fly, I could be there in the snap of a finger.
Oh, my Lord. Oh, goodness. All right. Well, listen, if you are out there, first off, thank you for the questions, okay? And in particular, thank you for this question. If you're out there and you'd like to tell us what you prefer out there, and if it is flying, definitely make a case for it, because I still have not heard any type of appropriate response from Mossy, that he doesn't understand how awesome it would be to be able to be invisible. That's something that I can't even comprehend. All right, Mossy, anything else?
That's it.
All right, we're going to take another real quick break here. And when we come back, we're going to finish up with, as always, one for the road. All right, we're back. And as we do each and every week on the pod, I give you my one for the road here at the end. Mossy, have you heard of this new phenomenon? I guess it's a phenomenon. This new social media platform out there called Clubhouse.
Only from you mentioning it a couple of times.
Yes. All right. So Clubhouse is this new social media platform, as I mentioned. It is, in a strange way, a glorified what in the 90s or 80s we would call a chat room or a chat line or a party line, if you will, in that it's all audio. I have, I've gotten into it just because my curiosity means that I want to find out how something new like this, and it's very new, how something new like this evolves and morphs and changes, and how, while it's maybe has one purpose, oftentimes when it is given to the public, it is repurposed going forward. And that's exactly what is happening in real time as we see this platform. For those that don't know, it is a social media platform that is audio only. It is only iPhones right now, and there's an exclusivity in that you have to be invited. I have decided to use it because everybody kind of is figuring out what it is and what it isn't. I've decided to use it kind of like a platform to do a radio show, if you will, a daily radio show. And what you do is you have people that come on and they put their hand up and then you bring them on. And I've looked at it in a much more traditional sense in making it a call-in type of show, albeit live and interactive with those folks that are coming in. And people are doing it very, very different ways. I don't know if this is going to last. I don't know how long it is going to last. And I also don't know where that next move is, because there's competition. As always, anybody puts something out with any type of legs, and this certainly has it, and it's gotten a lot of buzz. There are going to be others, especially those that are already there, that are going to come out and try to make their own version of it and try to give you a better version of it. And so your Twitters and your Facebooks and all those different things are going to happen. So this may be a Vine where it comes and goes, and then we're off to something else. But what I've been doing, as I said, is much more of a daily radio show. And it's really actually been interesting to hear the different people that we've talked to. And, while we've started to have some people into the State of the Union podcast from an interview perspective, I'm also mulling a way to get others much more involved and much more directly involved when it comes to going forward. And I know we do the Ask Alexi and all that kind of stuff, but in doing this Clubhouse type of situation each and every day, it just reinforced what I love about the soccer community is that it's so incredibly diverse and so into what's going on with soccer. And I'm not even just talking about domestically. I've gotten calls from all over the world, down in Brazil, over in England, Scandinavia, all over Scandinavia, Italy, all over the place each and every day. These people show up and they're really interested oftentimes in the business of what's going on with soccer in the United States and just soccer in general with what's going on. And there's best practices and all that kind of stuff. All of that is to say is, I love this soccer community that we are a part of, and all the different ways that we have and new ways that we have of communicating and interacting and, trying to talk about these things that we don't talk about often enough. And so it's really been fun on this platform. And once again, I don't know how long it's going to last to interact with people out there. Mossy, I'm going to get you on this. I'm going to see what you think about it, because there are all these different club houses, if you will, where people talk about different things. And you might find some really, really interesting things when it comes to not just the world of soccer, but the world out there that you might you might like going forward. So I'm going to invite you to this, and I'm going to see what your reaction is to it out there. But even if this were to go away tomorrow, again, my heart is full, and I remain incredibly optimistic about the future of soccer, and in particular, the future of soccer here in the United States, with all the different people that we have that are thinking about how to solve these problems that we have on and off the field, and all the different people out there that each and every day are doing their part. Oftentimes, as I said, for very little attention, very little money, but they love the game, and they're thinking about the game. And this is just another platform provided to all of us that are thinking about the game and going forward. And I've talked to people that are a lot older than me and a lot younger than me. So you have every different type of soccer person out there thinking about these things. And so anyway, I was thinking about Clubhouse going forward and what it means to soccer going forward, or if it means anything to soccer going forward. So if you get a chance to check it out and let us know what you think. I don't have any affiliation. It's not anything. I didn't buy stock, or I don't own any piece of the company or anything like that. And but it is getting a lot of hype right now, which means that there will be others that get hype too. And who knows when we'll be off to the next cool thing or shiny thing out there when it comes to social media. Until that time, you can always get a hold of us on all the traditional platforms that we have, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or anything else out there. And do use that hashtag AskAlexi if you send us questions, comments, and concerns. And we thank you, as always, for joining us and for reviewing and for subscribing and for rating and downloading and doing all the things that you do. Mossy, anything to say to the people before we head off?
That's it.
All right. We will talk again next week right here on the State of the Union podcast. And until that time, as always, size the day. You like that clip? Well, my State of the Union podcast drops every week. Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.